Columbus City Council has entered a new chapter by welcoming 9 council members, including 3 impressive newcomers. Today on City Chat, we're here with Councilmember Christopher Wyche to discuss his goals and aspirations for council. Councilmember Wyche, it's so great to have you here today on City Chat. Thank you for coming.
No, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, personal life, if you feel, and a little bit about your professional background?
Yeah, sure. Thank you again for having me. Always happy to take the moment to kind of continue to introduce myself as one of the newer council members. So, I always start with my intros very much the same. That's talking about my family. So I'm a dad. I'm a dad of 3. I have a 19-year-old in college, a 7-year-old who sometimes feels like she's about to turn 17, but is actually only turning 8 in May. And then my son, who is 4, who'll be in kindergarten, and 5 in the fall time. I'm a gardener. I love to garden. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to pursue sitting on the Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee, because I wanted to kind of marry my passion with the work that I was doing for the city. Prior to actually being elected for City Council, I spent almost a decade working at AT&T doing external affairs. So, when folks are out giving the big checks to nonprofit organizations, I was one of those people, which was exciting because we got to work in some really cool spaces and getting young people involved in STEM and coding, exploring their career in the tech world. Prior to that, I actually worked at nonprofit, which I really enjoyed and really kind of rerouted me. Originally my degree was in financial management, but when I got out of school, the idea of helping make wealthy people continue to be wealthy just didn't fill my bucket. And so I wanted to seek out an opportunity where I could give back to the community. And so it's been a long journey. I felt like every step was really about increasing the impact that I had, and Columbus City Council was just kind of that next step in the process.
There is something to say about people who have gardening as like a hobby. There really is. Can you tell us why you love gardening so much?
Yeah, it's interesting. And my wife, she has a love-hate relationship with it, let me be honest. When the pandemic happened, I expanded what was just kind of a couple of raised beds into a 12 by 30 foot garden. So it's serious, with a fence and a gate and everything. And I just love the idea of planting a seed and seeing what it grew and blossomed to. Now, harvesting and cooking said vegetables, never really my thing. So I'm like, hey, wife, here is like 50 tomatoes. Let's figure out a plan for that. But, it's just that enjoyment of playing in the dirt and really kind of seeing what comes. And, as a dad, having my kids out there at the same time has been helpful because, most kids don't like eating vegetables, but I can tell my kids, well, you grew this. This is what you grew in the summertime. And so it has really broadened their horizon in terms of things that they like to eat. So.
Wow, I love that philosophy. During your time on council, what impact do you hope to make?
Yeah, as I mentioned, marrying that passion for nature and the outdoors with the work on council was important. So I am excited to chair the Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee. And my office, my team, we've set a really lofty goal. We want Columbus to be the greenest city in the country. And that starts with us leading the way and ensuring that our city facilities are all sustainable, that the buildings that are coming and being developed in the city of Columbus are sustainable for the future, ensuring that we have green spaces, solar power, battery backups in homes, just to prepare for climate change. I think we're starting to see the effects of climate change with these extreme weather patterns. This past weekend was one of the coldest weekends of the year, and we have a whole week in which we're going to have single-digit temperatures. Those swings are quickly becoming the new norm. And so working on City Council to prepare for that and address climate change so that we can adapt or mitigate some of the effects is going to be important.
Yeah, I saw that there were some community centers that were open because of the freeze, and I thought that was something I hadn't seen, at least on that was advertised, that these community centers were open, but I thought that was really effective and really nice, because there were some friends that I had that their furnace had broken and they were like, we don't know what to do. So I thought that was really cool. What do you see as a key strategy on sustainability as Columbus continues to grow?
Yeah, I mean, one, I think it's taking stock of where we are internally. I think the city had already established, before I came on, their climate action goals. And so it's important that we continue to go back to residents to say, well, are we in the process? Like, how far along are we? Because we have goals that are deadlined for 2025, and then we also have additional goals that we're looking to have accomplished by 2030.
Okay.
And so making sure we're on track is going to be extremely important because of the urgency of the climate crisis. It's hard for a lot of folks to wrap their heads around because it's such a big issue that you are feeling the effects on a regular basis, but you don't always notice it. And so, prime example, 2023 was one of the hottest years ever. And we are going to continue to have those swings between really, really cold days and really, really hot days. And so that affects a lot of what we have around us. A lot of our housing stock isn't really built and prepared for those rapid swings in temperatures. Obviously, it's not going to be one day -70 and the next day 105, but those swings and those extreme temperatures are not, our housing stock really is not prepared for that. In addition, our workforce development, right? Do we have the people who work in the green space, who install solar panels, who do wind farms? We're not there, right? But the potential for us to be a region that leads the way is extremely important because we have all these tech companies moving to Central Ohio, and because we have that available space in and around the region in which we can kind of invest and grow these solar and wind farms for the future.
Another example that that I'm thinking of is that this past summer it was really hot. I was out with my kids, and water parks or spray parks had closed.
Yeah.
And then and then there was like another announcement that like because of this hot weather, it has been extended to be on this day or whatever. Is that kind of what you guys do? Like I know that's like a very small scale, but like that is something that like I appreciated that I didn't realize that there's someone really behind those scenes looking out for.
Yeah, no, great question. And it is something that my office as well as other offices on city council have been looking into. And really, they had set aside last year funding specifically for extreme weather events. So funding to keep those warming centers open, and then funding for cooling centers. So there was a couple of days last year where, COSI was open free to residents because we just want to get people out of the heat. Our movie theaters were open and free to residents because, again, we want to get them out of the heat into somewhere cool in which people can kind of, mitigate some of the effects of that change. I mean, that's the challenge, when we still have school buildings that don't have HVACs on them and they don't have air conditioning, they're not having heat. That is because we did not prepare as a community, as a state, for what the future of climate is going to have on our buildings.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. What role do you think our youth can play in the future sustainability of our city? And then, it's also kind of educating, not necessarily the youth, but like adults as well,
Yeah, everyone has a role to play. I think it's important too, especially from our youth standpoint. They are our biggest asset as a city, and they are going to be the future leaders, business owners, community leaders. And so arming them today with education about climate change, arming them with the skills necessary, like growing their own vegetables or working in a community garden, it goes a long way to making our city the greenest city in the country, but also goes a long way in ensuring sustainability for our workforce. And so they have those skills necessary that are going to be beneficial in the future.
Just kind of bringing it back to your gardening.
Yeah.
What do you teach your children about gardening besides, like, what lessons are they really learning from this passion of yours?
Yeah, I mean, one, it's about sunlight that, the garden is big, but I got a whole bunch of trees and a house that block out the sun. So it's about knowing kind of where the sun is on a regular basis and how it's going to hit different parts of the garden. There's different sides of seeds and, what they will grow and blossom into. There are things that can grow very well together. There are things that need to be grown apart. And so they learn all those different lessons, as well as also watering in the garden and the beneficial insects that are in there. my son, who I said is 4, he's still very apprehensive about worms. And I'm like, they're very important for the garden, so you should love them. But he'd rather me pick them up than deal with him himself. So, and then composting is a big one too. And so we're excited to see that there has been this renewed interest in composting and giving folks an opportunity to drop off food waste that they may have, so it can be composted and beneficial for the community. But there's still a lot more lessons that need to be told, especially in the recycling space. I think everyone thinks, all right, cool, I'm recycling, I'm putting things together, and it's going to help have an impact in the community. That's correct, but you have to do it right. So if you have jars, like pasta jars, for example, I don't know if you make spaghetti at home, but I got kids, so we eat a lot of spaghetti. A lot of times folks will just toss an entire jar into their recycle bin, not knowing that, hey, you need to wash that jar out completely. And if that jar has a metal top, you need to separate them before you recycle them so that that entire product can be recycled responsibly. And so I think one of the things my office is working on is also having an education campaign on what it means to recycle and where that recycling goes, how it gets turned into new products right here in Columbus.
So when we don't wash out the spaghetti jar, why is that not correct?
The impact. It can have a damaging effect to recycle centers. And so that's the importance of it. There was also, plastic water bottles where people would take off their tops and separate them, not knowing that when the loose top goes into our recycle centers, it was falling through many of the grates. And so it was important for folks to kind of keep those tops tightened on there so that they can all be recycled together and not fall through. Okay. So we have a new recycle center coming online, I think in May, June timeframe, which will allow for, little things like that to be caught. But in the meantime, those are just the education that we need to be doing as a community, so we're doing it effectively.
Doesn't it sound so daunting though, for everybody to, doesn't it sound daunting that everybody would do that correctly when it comes to recycling?
I mean, the whole concept of climate change is a very daunting thing for people a concept for people to grasp. So even the small things of recycling, I'm not surprised that some folks aren't getting it and some are. But we also have to be mindful of the fact that, sustainability is more than just recycling, right? It's how we're handling trash, how we're handling food waste, it's water policy, it's energy policy. Yeah, it's daunting. It's a big concept to try to get your arms around, but because of the urgent need, we really don't have a choice but to start to do this work today.
Yeah, you're right. Councilmember, is there anything else that you would like to add for our viewers?
Yeah, so I will just say this, I am excited to work for them on council and excited to kind of move our city and our region forward, especially as it relates to sustainability and green policy. I think now is the time for the city of Columbus to lead on this issue because we're going to need to get this done for our kids, our grandkids, and everyone. So appreciate the opportunity.
I'm Josie Smith. Thanks for watching City Chat on CTV.